Hey guys, we're a little bit late to the game, but I've been busy with my son and stuff like that and all that. So I did just want to go through my pickems really quick, especially the later part, since that one's still not started yet. Before it starts, and kind of talk about how I came to some of these. But to be honest, I just did these really quickly, and my pickems are decent, but I'm not like don't copy me for your answers because I'm not certifying that these are 100% the best answers, but in general, league games have been much shorter. Obviously, we're working with a different patch, right? We're talking about 14.18 and 14.19, which is the new patch we're playing in solo queue right now on the new split. Very different. Obviously, games are starting to go longer and longer in 14.19 with the item changes. That was kind of the design and the point. But in 14.18, games were going really quickly. It's kind of hard nowadays to get to a super late game, it seems like. So, I picked 45 minutes to 49 minutes and 59 seconds. I think picking 50 minutes to 55 seconds would be, or 50 minutes to 55 minutes would be probably the second go to. But that seemed a little bit too long and pushing it to me. I mean, who knows how many pentakills there will be, but I think usually there's a couple, so you're probably not going to expect only one. And, 3+ just seems like a lot better option that gives you a lot more flexibility than two, because two has to be exactly two, but 3+ is going to give you a lot. Which Drake will be killed the most at Worlds? I picked Infernal, and I've been thinking about this one, so it's a little bit difficult to say. So if we think about the way dragons work in League, there are going to be certain dragons that you're going to want to pick up if they come up early. So let's say there's an Ocean Drake early. Ocean Drake is very good in lane because it gives you a lot of health regen, which kind of changes the whole dynamic of how a lot of matchups and trading and poking can work in lane if you have an Ocean Dragon. So picking up an early Ocean Dragon can be very, very good. Now, there's also like the fact that obviously if you get to Soul, you're going to see for the third Drake and onward, the same Drake will spawn over and over again. Um, so the question might be, well, which Soul do we think is more likely to happen? And are we going to kill the dragon, if if we get to a second or a third dragon, is there going to be a dragon that we're going to stall out on and not take for a while? And that's going to make a dragon other than that less likely to be taken as much if it becomes the soul. Honestly, it's way too complicated. I just picked Infernal because Infernal's good. There's some stuff like people will say that like Cloud Soul has the highest win rate. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Drake in and of itself does. Obviously, like I said, Ocean is good early, but good early doesn't really help with this because obviously the most dragons is going to be the one that's spawning for soul the most because there's going to be that second, third dragon. And then if it gets flipped back and forth where the other team starts to take control of the game and now there's four of that type of dragon in that one game, then that's where you're going to see a lot of dragons. But it's really impossible to predict, so this is mostly a gamble. How many Baron steals will there be at Worlds? Same thing as like the Pentakills. There's always a couple. I forget what the options were here. We can't even see. But yeah, I mean, you're going to see a couple. 3 to 5 seems maybe a little bit high. But if the other option was like just two or something like that, or it was like 1 to 2, I could see, 3 to 5 being a much bigger range would make it maybe more likely. How many reverse sweeps will there be at Worlds out of 7 total best of fives? Did I really pick 0? I don't think it's likely to be 0. Maybe again depends on what the other options are. But I mean, yeah, 1 to 2, maybe 3 could be likely. But I don't know about 0. That's a little bit of a weird pick, to be honest. Who will be played in the most different roles at Worlds? Yeah, I had a really hard time with this one because there's a lot of champions I can think of that are really good in 2 roles right now, like Poppy in support and jungle, or maybe Maokai in support and jungle. Now, you could argue both of those champions can also go top, but pretty unlikely. In the current meta, nobody's really been playing them top. Gragas has always been a flex pick that could go in like either solo lane plus support plus jungle, but I don't think that that's very likely to happen in that many roles. Really, you're looking for a champion here that you think will be played in 3 roles, and I picked Rumble because I think Rumble could be played really in a lot of different roles. Right, some people had been playing him in support. He's still totally fine and viable in like top lane. If you get the right matchup, you could see him in mid lane as well, and even in jungle. So I picked Rumble for that one. We'll see how that pans out. Who will be picked the most during Champion Select at Worlds? I picked Renekton. That's probably not the best answer. I mean, obviously we've seen some of play-ins and stuff so far. Definitely champions like Kalista, Yone. Renekton's been very popular. Kassante's been very popular. Um, let's see, Renekton, Kalista, Yone. I'm trying to think if there's something that's broken. I might be forgetting something, but yeah, my pick wasn't very good on this one, but I picked Renekton. I don't think it's that bad of an answer, but probably not going to be right. Who will be banned the most during Champion Select at Worlds? Again, I picked Cassante. I think I'm missing the one champion here that, that's actually broken. I'm kind of slipping my mind even now. Who will have the most deaths at Worlds? I picked Nautilus. It's really between Nautilus or Rel because a tank engage support is going to be squishier than a true tank, and they're really forced to like full commit with their kits like Leona, Nautilus. Well, Leona, Nautilus, Rel, they all have to like really jump in with no way out. I just mentioned Leona. Leona is another decent answer, but you also want to pick one that people are likely to play more. I think the advantage we're talking about total deaths here, and I think Rel's been picked more. So I think that's why Rel ended up being a better answer. Who will have the highest win rate at Worlds? Minimum 5 games played. This is kind of a tough one because you can certainly have a champion just kind of slip through the cracks that like doesn't get played that much but is good, or even isn't that good but just happens to like win all 5 of their 5 games, or like 5 of their like 6 of their 6 games or whatever, like win 5 out of 6 or something, and all of a sudden that's the highest win rate champion. So it's actually easier, right, if the champion doesn't have like 20 or 30 games played but instead only has like 5 games played or 6 games played. So I picked Ivern. I think Ivern's really good, but people in teams aren't picking him very much. Who will play the most different champions at Worlds? I picked Carrier. He's got a really wide champion pool for a support player, and support's one of those roles that can kind of accommodate just a massive amount of different champions being picked in it without it being that big of a deal. Who will get the most kills in a single game at Worlds? I think that Viper is a really, really hard carry for his team and a really, really good AD carry player. So I think that he will be fed a lot of kills and get a high kill game. Who will have the highest KDA at Worlds? Chovy is a KDA player, as simple as. Canyon, who will get the most first blood kills at Worlds? I heard people saying that like, oh, it's between like a support player and a jungler, and I don't really see. I agree there are a decent number of scenarios where like a support player, ends up getting the last hit in bot lane, but it's not really the goal, right? And junglers are usually always going to be involved in the action, so I think it's way more likely to be a jungler than it is to be a support. Obviously, for a lot of these two, you want to pick a player who's going to go really far in the tournament. Like, let's say for who's going to pick the most different champions. Well, if you're eliminated after 6 games, not much of a chance to pick many champions, right? Or if you've got who's going to get the most first bloods, well, the more games you play, the more opportunity there is for you to get those. So you're going to want to pick a team that's going to go pretty far. So I pick like a lot of Genji and T1 here. Who will get at least 1 pentakill at Worlds? Again, I think Viper. I mean, if you assume the player is going to get a lot of kills, they're probably also just as likely to be the one getting the pentakill. Which team from a region with 2 seeds or less will advance the furthest through Worlds? Oh, this is a pretty good pick. This one's panning out pretty well. Yeah, PSG talent. So this would be from a minor region, basically. Um, so you only have like the PCS and Vietnam. I think are the only regions with two, and obviously a region with two teams there is probably more likely to outperform like one region or a one team region like Brazil, for example, who happened to make it through to the Swiss stage, although you wouldn't have known that at this point in the pickings. But yeah, PSG talent is a really good pick here. They're probably like the best minor region team. Billy Gaming. Which team will win the shortest game? So yeah, Chinese teams are very, very aggressive. Very different than Korean teams. Koreans play a very slow choke out game where they're just going to consistently get ahead of you. And Chinese players play a very fast paced, mechanically intense game. And so usually you're going to expect some like really good Chinese team versus some really bad team, and they're going to slaughter them, right? And so we picked Billy Gaming. I think that that's a decent answer. Let me just look here. Can we see the schedule real quick? Can we see like the schedule? Who are they playing? Oh, Billy's versus Mad Lions. That kind of sucks because obviously you wouldn't have known this at the time, but you'd probably want to pick like who's playing against like one of the minor regions. Honestly, not that bad though, because probably the two worst teams that are left are like Pain and Gigabyte Marines, and they're playing versus NA and EU teams. So honestly, they're not. These games are going to be a lot closer than they would be if like Billy was playing versus like Pain or something like that. Billy versus Pain would have been a really nice draw for this answer, but obviously this is less likely to happen with that being the case. Which team will have the most Baron steals at Worlds? I mean, this is kind of hard to say. But obviously you're going to pick a team that's going to go far and play a lot of games at Worlds again to have the most likelihood of this happening. And I think Canyon has actually had a lot of steals, so I went with Gen G. Which team will win Worlds? I have Gen G. Probably realistically, like a Chinese team like Billy Gaming is probably pretty likely to win, though. Which team will play the most different champions at Worlds? But there's a lot of different teams that could win Worlds this year. Like there's a couple of Chinese teams that could win, a couple of Korean teams. It's about how it always is. Which team will play the most different champions? You know, I figured with Keria being the support player that I thought would play the most unique, or being the one player I thought would play the most unique champions, and then thinking about other players on SKT, or I mean on T1, like, like Faker obviously having a really deep champion pool. I think that their players in general, probably at least a couple of them, have really deep champion pools, and so they're probably likely to be able to play a lot of different champions, and probably will, and they're also likely to go far. So that's a good pick there. So that's the crystal ball, and then the picks for the play-ins. Unfortunately, I did pick 100 Thieves to advance. Picked all the other ones correctly, but unfortunately, I did not expect that Pain would advance and that 100 Thieves would get eliminated, but here we are. See my other video about that one. And then we've got the Swiss stage, and so I've locked in that Genji is likely to finish the Swiss stage undefeated. Billy would be another good answer. And I actually did end up picking G2 and FlyQuest to go through, but I was really considering that one. I think it helps that they both matched versus, and you could see this when you went to pick this, I think it helped that they both matched versus minor region teams in the first round. So with the limited information that we have, that does help them a little bit because they're likely to advance to 1-0, although that does mean then they're probably likely to play another hard team. But maybe they play versus each other or something like that, and then they definitely have a higher chance. So with the limited information that we do have, I definitely think that G2 and FlyQuest, could do well given their easy starting matchup. The chance that they end up both going 1-0 and then playing versus each other, and then one of them is like basically out or in a really good position to be out. And then the other thing that's going on here that I think is important to note is Whippo is really good. And, if you look at his record, it's, you have to remember that 100 Thieves was basically like the fourth best team in NA out of like 8 teams. It's very unfortunate that Cloud9 lost to them, but they weren't amazing. FlyQuest is NA's number 1 seed and has a lot of really good talented players. And for all of the stuff I've said about how bad the region is and stuff like that, for various reasons, and how disappointing 100 Thieves performance is, you have to keep in mind that there is a big difference between 100 Thieves and like the top team in the region. And so while yes, 100 Thieves lost to R7, like FlyQuest would not have. And so when we compare and we see that, okay, Latin America has the same number of players in the player base as NA, Brazil has the same number of players in the player base. This is true, but there are other factors. And one of the other factors is that NALCS pays a lot of money. There's still, there's less money in the league than there used to be before, but there's still a lot of investor dollars in the league. And so we are paying some really good players, even from other regions and stuff like that. And if you just look at Bwipo's history, really quickly, like look at his Worlds results. So obviously with Fnatic in 2018, they got second place at Worlds. They went to the finals. That was 2018. In 2019, they went to quarterfinals at Worlds and then lost to FPX. This may have even been the year FPX won. And then in 2020, they also made it to quarterfinals, lost by 1 game to Top Esports. Really close fashion, so that was pretty good. And then Worlds 2021, they did not do very good, so that's not good. And then, is that it? Maybe it's not as good as I thought. Now I'm getting concerned. Anyways, so it's, Bwipo's very good. Inspired has been playing out of his mind. So I am hopeful that FlyQuest will be a lot better. Obviously, you have a really competent team compared to 100 Thieves. It's not the same. A lot of people are going to go in and they're going to say, well, NA is just bad in general. And they're not entirely wrong. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which again, I covered in another video. But FlyQuest is definitely going to be decent. So, and a lot better than 100 Thieves. So keep that in mind. FlyQuest, 100 Thieves, not the same team just because they're from the same region. I expect FlyQuest to perform pretty well, especially starting out versus wildcard team. So, it was kind of a toss-up between putting like the 4th LCK team and the 4th Chinese team in here. But I am confident that G2 and FlyQuest, especially with easy first matches versus wildcard teams, are going to be able to make it past the 4th Chinese team and the 4th Korean team. We'll see. So there's my predictions for the Swiss stage. Obviously we'll have to get into this stuff once it actually happens. And then the final note here is just on the schedule here for the first couple of matches. We've got Hanwha Life versus PSG. I think that Hanwha Life is favored. But this is going to be close and interesting. FlyQuest versus Gigabyte Marines. I think FlyQuest is favored, but again, probably going to be close and closer than people would like. G2 versus Pain Gaming. G2 is favored. Again, probably closer than people would like to believe. Billy Gaming versus Mad Lions. Yeah, this Billy is going to win. Top Esports versus T1. This is a really close match. Really hard to say who will win this. Team Liquid versus LNG. I mean, probably LNG is favored, but it won't be that far apart. Maybe I'm overestimating Team Liquid. We'll see. And then Fnatic versus Damwon. I mean, obviously Damwon's probably favored, but this will be close too. We got some good matches here. Genji versus Weibo. Genji favored. Not that far apart. Honestly, pretty good matches. That's one advantage of having NA and EU playing the wild card is you're not getting any like crazy stomps. Like I think the games that are like the furthest apart, the biggest skill discrepancies will be like Hanwha versus PSG Talon, Billy versus Mad Lions, and maybe Genji versus Weibo. And depending on how bad Fnatic and Team Liquid are, these could be blowouts too, but we'll see. But yeah, overall pretty decent matching. So hope you guys enjoyed. Good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful day and enjoy Worlds.